Hi, head people. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be on the face of the planet. Uh, you're welcome to my climate story, Tosin, and where we bring in, frontline actors working on responses to climate change, people who are responding to the crisis of the day. And today we have one of the foremost climate actors in Nigeria, Mr. Almahroof Mohammed, joining us today to share with us what are his perspective, how is he experiencing impact of climate change around himself, and what are some of the things he's doing in response to that. Oftentimes when we talk about impact and stories of how climate change affects our communities, and to some people, it looks like something that is so far-fetched or something that is abstract. But we climate change affects us in different ways. In some communities, it is in their experience with extreme weather conditions. In some communities, it is flooding that comes with intense rainfall. In some communities, it's farming. I mean, the impact of climate change, touches every part of the planet, and frontline communities are usually at the forefront of this. But we have individuals who are rising up in those communities to lead awareness, to create change, and also to respond. And so, thank you for joining us today, Mr. Almahroof.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for having me. Good day, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, from wherever it is you are watching us. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. Thank you. Can you kindly introduce yourself to us? Who is Mr. Almahroof?
I am Mohammad Almahroof, just like I have been rightly introduced by the presenter. I am a Nigerian. I have been a climate advocate for about 2 decades, and I'm a teacher, and at the same time, a certified humanitarian professional, and of course, one of the leaders of Citizen Climate Lobby here in Nigeria. I have been in the advocacy, like I said, for about 2 decades, and it's a passion that I have always felt because of my love for humanity and the faith I behold, which has always encouraged that worship is not sufficient if it does not follow up with being kind to humanity. And so that has been my guiding principle. I have always believed that whatever it is we can do to provide succor, to take away suffering from human beings, wherever they may be on earth, I think it's worth all the effort, and that has been what defines the whole of my life.
Thank you. You mentioned humanity suffering, but what does humanity suffering has to do with climate change?
Of course, we do know that climate change is one reality that anybody cannot deny any longer. It's obvious that we can feel it on our daily life. The community where I used to be before, where I was a teacher, where I served for about 2 decades, one of the driving force was that when I got to that community, I noticed that women trek long distances in order to go and get firewood to cook for their family. And sometimes, even after going that long distance, sometimes it would take them 6, 7, 8 hours before they could come back. And sometimes when they come back, you see what they refer to as firewood. That's just mere sticks, because there are no wood. I mean, there are no trees any longer. All the trees have been cut down. And this is because over a long period of time, the kind of agriculture that is practiced is a slash burn kind of agriculture. And so they have decimated the trees. For people to get firewood to cook, it means they have to go long distances. And so I look at this suffering, and I was beginning to imagine that the thing that is manifesting in the life of this individual that is placing so much burden on them, it's because they are the over period, the way they have handled the environment is not telling back on them. trees have been cut down, the soil is losing its protection, the trees are no longer, there are no longer fresh trees, so people have to go long distances for them to cut, to get trees for them to be able to provide food for their family. I think that was what I saw, and I felt this is quite horrific, that for human beings to cook, they have to go that long distances before they can get food for their family. And I felt there is every need for us to create some awareness, to talk to people, to see how we can begin to have attitudinal change towards the environment, and see what are the things that we can do to reduce the suffering, and also to make people adapt to the new change that they have found in their community, the new reality.
Thank you. The new reality of what people are experiencing now, from your own personal experience, what were the realities for you? What were some of the things you enjoyed growing up, but are no longer there these days?
As a young man, I think one of the major things which I've always enjoyed growing up is that you grow up, you see yourself in natural environment, you see trees around, you see birds around, you come across animal in some instances. I mean, it was really fun growing up, because these were part and parcel of one's life. You go around, you even do some hunting of birds, and put some in a cage, play around with them, and after some time set them free. It was a way of living that time. But today we have driven those birds into extinction. Not so many of them can be found around us again. And because of our attitude of thinking just majorly about ourselves, that is, human beings thinking just about themselves, forgetting that the system is complementary. If you don't have trees around, if you don't have those animals around, so survival for human being may become threatened. And that is the reality we are facing today, which I know some of us are beginning to admit, even though there are few individuals, probably out of ignorance, or because of still a human personal interest, are yet to come to reality with that. But the truth is that our existence is in threatened, because all those other things that complements life for us, that makes life easier, are already being taken away from us. And that is the reality we are facing today.
Hello, as a special guest today, Mr. Mohammad Almahroof seem to have some technical um, challenge right now. Its video is stopped. I'm hopeful that he will be able to join us shortly. That's one of the challenges we have to contend with technology and also internet. And it's calling from its internet right now is not stable, so we have lost our guest for today, Mr. Almahroof Mohammed. Mr. Almahroof Mohammed is a regional leader for the Citizens Climate Lobby in southwestern part of Nigeria, and is also a climate reality leader. He's someone that I've had to I've known him for some years and engaged with him in different platforms. He's been a committed voice for the environment. A committed humanitarian, and he's a man with a large heart and concern and passion for the community where he lives, and even beyond that. And I know he's been doing awesomely well in terms of creating changes in its environment. And its story is quite interesting, and and that's why we have him today. And I'm hoping that Mr. Almahroof is able to join us again. I'm hoping he's able to join this call again, because he has something very very important to share on the roles that individuals could lead in their communities to not just imagine change, but also to live those change, to be that change we all wish to see in our community. And he's been doing this over the years, volunteering and leading acts of leadership, in terms of responding to local environmental
You,
crises. Okay, Mr. Almahroof, I understand. You're back on here. Can you hear us?
I lost my
That's
I
all right.
lost
That's all right. Sometimes it comes with the territory.
uh,
Yes, we're glad to have you on. Can you
say
continue?
that growing up, yes, like I was trying to say that growing up was very fun. As children, we had trees all around us. We had birds that flew around us, and all these ones created fun for us. We play, we climb trees, we get fruits direct from the trees. It was a childhood full of adventure, and I noticed that most of these things are lacking. Our children are growing up in an area where we've taken away all the trees, and you hardly could for them, because they find it difficult to appreciate some of these things around them. And like I said earlier on, having those things around, it's complementary. So we really cannot enjoy lots of those.
Okay. We've lost him again. Well, I'm sure he would be joining this conversation. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Please, we lost you at some point.
Yes, it's the internet. It has been off and on, and I'm
Never mind.
surprised.
Don't be worried. I mean, yeah, it often happens.
Okay.
But you're back on hand right now. So okay. So you were responding to a question I asked
Yes.
about what were those things you saw growing up and that are not here right now. What if you observe some of those
I
things?
said
Yes. Go on.
growing up was really fun. We related very well with the environment. We had trees around us. We climbed trees. We plucked their fruits, which we enjoyed. We also even have birds, which sometimes we even catch, place them in cage, play around with them, and release with time. And so these are some of those things that we enjoy growing up. It was a cordial relationship between us and the environment. We explore it. It was very adventurous. Some of those things are lacking today. You see children grow up in an environment that is very, very unnatural. And so it's an environment created by us, and so it's becoming difficult for them to be able to appreciate the environment, because we are creating a new kind of environment for them, not the one that nature has created and perfected.
Hmm. Thank you. But and these days, there's it's also very common the experiences people have, which is a fallout from extreme weather conditions. How do you help people in your community to tie some of these connections to climate change?
I just like when I talk to people, the elderly, the farmers, they will all admit that things are not the way they used to be.
Hmm.
That's one fact. They will tell you ordinarily this period is when we are supposed to have rain, and it's getting delayed. Even the yield are reducing. In fact, there was a time a farmer told me that what he normally harvests from his farmland, which is just a subsistence farming. It's by far reduced by more than 50% of what it used to be in some 15, 20, 25 years back. And these are reality people are facing. The problem is how to link it with climate change, and also link it up with their own attitude towards the environment. This is what we have been trying to do. I told one a particular forum of farmers. I was like telling them that that time that we were talking about, do they notice that their environment, there are plenty, there are so much trees around, and there are probably few industry and few vehicles around, and probably how many of them had motorcycle that time. So most of them admitted that they had no motorcycle, they had to trek to their farm, that very few individuals, even if they have in their community, had cars. So it's a reality that I now told them that because the new lifestyle we live, the cars we use, the motorcycle they ride around, with the combustion that takes place with the CO2 that goes into the atmosphere, is part of what is causing problem. Those trees that they used to have around their farms, that they have cut down in an effort to grow more crops, and also to get wood for cooking. So all those things are what has contributed into the new reality we are facing now. It is the attitude towards the environment and a new lifestyle which we are trying to embrace that has become a problem for us today, and that has been the major reason for which some of those things we have always known and even taken for granted in those days are becoming difficult these days. They can always predict when they are going to have rain. They can always predict when the rain was going to stop. It's no longer the same this time around again.
And what how do they receive that? I in as much as we understand the roles that individuals have to play, we also need to look for a place to balance the roles that major polluters are playing in this game. So in as much as we're promoting personal responsibility and personal effort to curb our carbon emissions, what other roles can major corporations who are actually chunking out chunks of carbon emissions into the atmosphere play? How can we help them to be more responsible and accountable, in your own view?
I think we really need to begin to make corporations to realize that they can always continue to exist and make profit for as long as there is still life on Earth, for as long as humanity still survive on Earth. But if we carry on like this in a reckless manner of just looking towards profits without minding whatever it is that happens to the environment, then a time will come that there won't be human being on Earth again, and there won't be that profit for them to make. So it's about survival. So let's not then just look at it that we make our profit and that is all. We don't care what happens to the environment. It's the profit at a point, what they are going to even spend to support their own life may surpass the profit because of the disaster and the crisis that comes with climate change. So, and my passionate appeal to corporation is that they should put humanity first. They should think survival first, and not just look at just profit making only. Because if we must continue to live here, then certainly we need to work together to make sure that we change our attitude and we begin to look at the environment and take proper care of it. I think that's my take.
And from your experience doing this, creating awareness about various environmental issues, what are some of the pushback you've been getting? What are some of the frustrations that's been coming across to you?
It's quite frustrating because initially when I started, like I used to tell some younger advocates, it's like when you start advocacy, it looks like a crazy man out there. You are just all alone to yourself, Nobody cares to listen to you, and nobody wants to know what you are trying to say. But for as long as you never allow that to deter you, you keep calling their attention to it from time to time, then one day they begin to reason along with you and begin to ask questions, and it's from there you begin to explain things better. So it's quite challenging. People sometimes think it's not about them. It's about the developed world. Does it really concern us? What I mean, we are suffering here, and you are still telling us this is a lifestyle we are supposed to adapt and things like that. But the reality is that when climate crisis happens, it doesn't make discrimination. And in fact, those who are even poor are more vulnerable because probably the way they have built their houses and the environment where they are living, it exposes them more to the risks of the climate crisis. So I used to tell people that they may find it difficult to want to heed to your warning, but if you link what is happening to them, what is happening in their environment to the climate change, certainly they will begin to pick, they'll begin to reason along with you. And from there, you can begin to call for a change of attitude and what they need to do and what they need to desist from.
Thank you so much. As an experienced climate change advocate, you mentioned that in your, when you get to talk to people you mentor, young people you mentor, between the point of when they start creating awareness and when those awareness starts having traction with people, when people start buying it takes some time. So from you,
Yes.
what were those things that kept you going when your message didn't seem to make any meaning to people?
Because I know what I was calling on is true. It's not hard. It's not some people just sit down somewhere to just create some story. I know it's a reality. I know it's happening. It's happening to them. I know it's what they go through from time to time, and that become the push for me, because I know certainly that the thing I call attention to, it's a thing that is happening to everybody. It's just a way. You know what is happening to us is that sometimes we play the ostrich, sometimes deliberately, sometimes out of ignorance. People want to pretend that all is well, whereas they will always complain and tell you, this rain has not come. I see it's so hot, it's so stuffy, and last year was not like this. So, I mean, these are things people say. And so anytime they make such comment, it's an opportunity for you to just tell them that this is what is happening. And so gradually, some of them will begin to link it up. And so that becomes the driving spirit, because I know it is true. I know it is happening, and I know people are experiencing it, and it becomes the driving spirit for me.
Thank you. But the lack of inaction by maybe political players in responding to climate change, what does that tell you? What kind of image does that portend to the country?
I think where we need to work is that we begin to make leadership more accountable. So and that will begin by making people to realize how important their votes are. So politicians ordinarily will always want to do things their own way, but it's left to the electorates who have voted them into office to make them realize that they didn't come into office on their own, or out of their own personal volition only. Some people voted for them to get into office. And so when that happens, we continue to, ask for accountability from politicians. And that will only happen if people realize how powerful they can be and how powerful their vote can be in pushing people into office or getting them out of office. I think one thing we need to do as part of our advocacy is also to make people realize that they can always make government to do their biddings. And so if we go out to advocate for people to change their attitude, we must also let them know that there are some responsibility that government owes them. There are some commitments that government is supposed to, there are some things that government is supposed to commit into to make sure that we have we have a reduction or even a control of the current climate crisis has been experienced. So we need to empower the people to realize how powerful they are in a democratic setting in bringing people into office and determining the agenda or the program that the people ought to carry out or implement when they get into office.
And getting people to make these demands will be very hard if people are not aware that those are some of the demands they should make from the government, right?
And that's where awareness and advocacy come in truly, because our literacy level is so low here, and the poverty level is also so high, and with little things people get persuaded into doing things which ordinarily they are not supposed to do. But by the time you create that awareness, you let them realize that anytime you go out to vote for a politician, you are already empowering that person to do so many things on your behalf. And so if you must give that power to him, you must make sure that it is given in a manner that you should be able to make him to account for it. He must be accountable to you, and not that he's just there all alone. So awareness is very, very, very vital and very important. Our people must note that they have the power, and they can always make politicians to become accountable to them. That's really important.
Thank you so much. As a parent, and who has some concern, and of course you wish the best for your kids, in the case of business as usual, if we do not act enough to protect and to restore our climate crisis, what kind of world do you imagine your children will be in? Do you have any sort of worries, or are you hopeful that there's going to be a change automatically?
There is fear, there is apprehension, but I must tell you that in the midst of all this, I still continue to build hope that gradually, because before now, some 5, 6, 10 years back, we really could hear anybody in our environment talk about this. And today you hear people saying it. In fact, I have watched and listened to programs in local stations where issue of climate change is being discussed, and you notice that experiences like the flood we had, people will tell you, it has never happened like this before for many years, this like that. And so this reality is the thing that is making me to have to build some hope that it's no longer, we can't live in denials any longer. Our children that are growing, so we have a responsibility to create a better world for them. And the reality of what we face today is it's making us to know that we can't do otherwise. We really have to make sure that we put the right programs and policy in place so that our children will live a better world, not worse than what we are going through today.
Mm. Thank you. So we hold the future generation that responsibility to make sure that we're living in a world that is sustainable, a world they can live in, and a world they can thrive in. And how do we get young people involved in this? Because eventually it's going to be their world.
Certainly, I used to tell my students while I was still in school, while I was still a teacher, I used to tell them that it's their own world, and when it's yours, you give it all the attentions and all the care and the love that it deserves. So, and they have the ability to determine the kind of world they want to live. We will do our own best to make sure that we have a change of attitude, but then the majority of the task has to be done by them so that they don't continue in our own path of mindless destruction of the environment the way we are doing it. So if these are the things we need to tell them. We show them reality, what life used to be like, how fun it used to be like, and they can also create this kind of life that is full of fun only if they can relate well with the environment. I think by the time we show them the picture of what it means when they care for an environment and when they just have a carefree attitude towards the environment, they will be able to make a deciding decision to know that if they care for environment, certainly the environment is going to care for them and provide all their needs as well.
Thank you. And my concluding question would be, what one word do you have for the government of Nigeria in terms of response to climate change?
I think my response is Nigerians should be very sincere when they go to international conferences. Whatever commitments they have made there, when they come back home, they make sure that they follow it through, so that it will not just be like the kind of political statements we are used to hearing when we plan to. I mean, when we promise the world that we are going to plant 25 million
Mm.
trees, we should be seen planting it. When we promise the world that we are going to reduce our emission, we should be seen committed to doing that. I think that is what I want to appeal to government, that they should be more committed to any agreements they have made to international community, and every agreement they have made to Nigerians, and the Nigerians, to Nigerians alike.
Thank you so much, Mr. Almahroof. Well, I know sometime in the future we have another opportunity to share from your deep wisdom. I just want to say thank you for what you do, and I want to share a little poem in appreciation to all that you do for us. And
Thank you.
it's a poem as well as a prayer, and it goes
That's
thus:
interesting. That's interesting.
may all the healers of the earth find their own healing.
Amen.
May they all be fueled by passionate love for the earth.
Amen.
May they know their fears and not be stopped by their fears. May they
Amen.
feel the anger and yet not be ruled by rage. May they
Amen.
honor their grief but not be paralyzed by sorrow. May they
Amen.
transform fears, rage, and grief into compassion and desperation to act in service to what they love.
Thank you.
May they find the help, the resources, the courage, the luck, the strength, the love, the health, the joy that they need to do the work. May they be in the right place at the right time in the right way.
Thank you. Thank you.
May they bring alive a great awakening, a opening ear to hear the earth's voice, transform
Amen.
imbalance to balance,
Amen.
hate to greed, hate and greed to love.
Amen.
May the healers of the earth be blessed.
Amen.
Thank you for
Thank
what you
you.
do. We appreciate
Thank
you. Please,
you.
please keep it up.
Thank
Know
you.
that one thing, that you're not alone.
Yes, yes.
Unseen forces are with you, and
Thank you.
everything that you do, we see, we appreciate, and
Thank
may you
you
be
very much.
blessed.
Thank you. May you be blessed too. I'm grateful.
So viewers, thank you for joining us today on my climate story with Tosin, with our passionate guest, Mr. Almahroof. Was just share some of his own perspective with us on these all important issues that portend threat to our planet and to our welfare, the way we know it. And so please remember to subscribe to this channel and share with your friends and like our page. And it's the most important thing that we all have, and that's the planet. Without the planet, there's no you and I. So in conclusion, our appeal to you: please go out there, just like Mr. Almahroof has shared. Go into your community too. We are all light. Go and be the light that the world wants to see. Go and create the change that you also imagine it's possible in the world. The world is a playground. And so until I come your way again next week with another climate champion, please take care of the earth. Bye bye.